Do you have a picture of this place you can throw up on the computer? Someone's pens? Can you do that? Is that up to your thing? I like that. I'm getting used to that.
Let's start by saying why we're late.
Yes, welcome to Design Review Board number 1 of August the 7th, 2008. We are starting late tonight simply because we had an alternative assessment panel which started at 3 o'clock and the discussions just finished moments ago at 6:45. So thank you very much for your patience and cooperation. That said, again, the Design Review Board number 1 public meeting of August the 7th is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting, and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones and pagers. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, must completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. You will be called to present a case. If you are called to present a case, we ask that you do so and come to the podium when called. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project must completely fill out one of the postcards provided by the table at the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent hearings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available by calling our DRB hotline at 818-548-3171 or by visiting our website at www.ci.glendale.ca.us. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB reconsideration and appeals is available at the table by the front door. Please note that all appeals must be filed within 7 or 10 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date, depending when the case was submitted.
Thank you.
The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. Roll call. Board Member Aliano is absent. Board Member Ellis.
Present.
Board Member Insua.
Here.
Board Member Simonian.
Here.
Board Member Yu.
Here.
Report regarding posting of the agenda. The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on July the 31st, 2008. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. The board may question the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The board may refer the matter to the proper department section for investigation and reports. I do not believe we have any cards for oral communication. Is that correct, Chairperson Simonian?
Correct. I just have none.
None for oral communications. Staff announcements. We do have one staff announcement, and that is in regards to the second item on tonight's agenda, which would be case number 1-PDR 2006-143-B. This is for the property located at 4805 Dunsmore Avenue. This matter concerning an addition to a single-family residence has been continued for 2 weeks due to improper site posting. So the matter will be heard in 2 weeks' time. There are no other staff announcements. We ask that the board take the approval of the minutes out of order. There was quite a bit of discussion at our last hearing date regarding the minutes of June the 26th and required clarification by Mr. Chris Baxter, who is here.
The house on
Pardon?
The Montecito Park place.
Correct.
Montecito, right.
Oh,
So if you don't mind, if everyone agrees, we'll be taking the agenda,
that sounds great.
the minutes out of order.
Thank
you.
Would you like me to say something now?
Yes,
Yes.
because
All right, sir. If you recall, this was the minutes we were worried about. The applicant said, in the minutes it says aluminum clad windows. He said he had passed this around, the board members had looked at it, and he was under the assumption that you had accepted the vinyl clad. Part of the discussion last time was that supposedly the rest of the house, the existing house, was all vinyl clad and they were just going to match. So the board members asked staff to go out and check the site. So staff did that actually today. So the front of the house is vinyl clad, with the exception of some louvered metal frame windows in one area, which is a breezeway. Of course, that's going to be all removed.
That's gone. Yeah.
When you go around the house, there is one vinyl-clad sort of bay window at the back. There is a metal window that's kind of a fixed window at the side. It's a smaller one. But the rest of the windows are wood, either double or single hung. I don't know. They were all pulled too. Nobody was at home at the time. So they were all wood windows. The rest of the windows were wood. So that was my inspection this morning.
Percentage-wise, what would you say is vinyl versus wood? Or vinyl versus everything else of the existing?
I'd say about 40% is vinyl.
Is vinyl. So
Yeah, at least 40, not quite 50%. Because, see, the back side was almost all wood. But the front side was all vinyl. That was all vinyl.
And were they quality vinyl like these, or were they the Home Depot version of vinyl?
Well, you know what, it's hard to say, sir.
Hard
A
to
lot of
say.
it was in the behind screens.
Right.
There was one portion that was kind of a beige-looking one that I could show you sort of an idea, but it's this window right here. When you look at the house, this one,
Yeah.
that was the only one. This portion of it was the only one that was exposed, and not by the screen, I mean.
Right.
And so it, I have to admit, I didn't take this and stick it in the
No.
but I
Okay.
eyeballed it.
Right.
And it looked, in fact, I even went up and tapped on it and scratched to see whether it was...
Was it thermal pane? Were they dual pane, dual glazed? Do you know? Did you catch that?
No, sir, I didn't look. I was looking for the vinyl part.
No.
They probably were.
probably
I think that's
They've
sort of
been
different.
replaced. Right.
So anyway, that was my inspection today.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. We appreciate you taking the time to go out and look at those.
Absolutely, because you've gone back and forth on this, a few hearings, and we appreciate you sticking around until 7 p.m. to
Yes, sir.
present those facts. So we do appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
That'd make it get cooler in here. All for yes, good. I'll defer to you guys. I would have said something at the time if I'd known we were doing vinyl clad. In the minutes at that one point we talked aluminum. I thought aluminum or anything but vinyl, but I'll defer. Ditto.
all right, then I'll say I think they should change it out to the aluminum that we originally said. The only contention that we had was that if it was already 80-70% of it was existing vinyl, then we would match it. But
Okay.
less than 50%, I think there's reason to just say to replace it out to what we've always been consistent in, is the aluminum clad with wood windows. So I say we go for that.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, so we're going to maintain this condition of a window schedule and elevation shall clearly identify the window material as being aluminum-clad wood?
Yes.
Yes.
If you are going to be maintaining the minutes as they are with that particular condition,
All we have to do is approve the
all you have
minutes.
to do is approve the minutes.
I move
because
approval of the minutes.
I second.
I have a motion by Board Member Ellis, and I have a second by Board Member Yu, in terms of a roll call. And forgive me, because I don't have the minutes in front of me for June the 26th. I just want to make, June 26th. No, we don't have. We don't have that in front of us. I just want to make sure that everyone who is present actually...
Well, I was
Oh,
definitely
okay.
here.
I have that. Do you
have it?
I'm sorry, Ms. Dematitis. Let me just do
Thank you,
this real
Mr.
quick.
Baxter.
We all were here.
I was here.
except-
You were all there?
Yes.
Mr. Oliano was here as well, I believe that
You
day.
actually, if I may say, at the meeting, we had, all the board members were present.
All of the board members were present. So, Board Member Ellis?
Yes.
Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Insua?
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
Good night, Mr. Baxter.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter, for setting up the fans for us. We appreciate it.
This is a storm evening. The minutes from July the 10th, and that would be done.
Oh, they were emailed or something.
So, and Board Member Aliano was present, Board Member
I was
Simonian, and
absent.
Board Member Yu.
you weren't here.
Board Member Ellis and Insua
Yeah.
were absent.
Do you have enough to vote for it?
Yeah,
In this case, we do. We have two.
Oh,
Well, two out of the three that were
Two
present
out of-
there,
I got
so
it.
that
Okay,
would
great.
be...
Okay. The only thing that I noticed was on number 9, under the conditions,
And the raceways should be
yeah, I think-
minimized as much as possible?
the
Yeah.
maximum depth portion, I think it was 3 inches either way. We were trying to, because it just shows it as depth, but also the width of it, or
So
the
it'd be
face of it.
The height?
Right.
the height
I
and
think we're
depth?
trying to minimize that as well.
Okay. Depth and height. All right, with that motion, do you mind?
I think that's it. for me.
I believe that's a motion by Board Member Yu, And then a second by Board Member Simonian. And in terms of a roll call, I believe, since both of you,
I'm the chairman, so can I second it? I don't think I
you
seconded
may
it.
pass the gavel to Board Member Insua.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You were the only two that were present that day on July the 10th, so thank you. Board Member Yu?
Yes.
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
The motion passes 2-0 in this case to approve the minutes of July the 10th. We do not have the minutes from July the 24th for your consideration this evening, so that will pass, which at time we will go straight to the agenda and the first item on the agenda.
Great.
Turn it over, the meeting over to Chairman Simonian.
Thank you so much. Our first case is 1-PDR-2008-029-A 4829 Cloudsdale Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian.
Staff, we're ready for you, so at your timing.
Thank you, Mr. Simonian. As mentioned, the first case of tonight, case number 1PDR 2008-029-A, located at 4829 Cloudsdale Avenue. The proposal is to add 970 square foot of second story to the existing 1,570 square foot one-story house. It also includes a 10 square foot addition to the first floor. The existing house was built in 1954 and it sits on a 7,410 square foot lot. The subject site is in the R1 zone and it's in the Dunsmore neighborhood where there is an eclectic mix of architectural styles, including low-slung one-story homes mostly built in the 50s. Currently, there are windows on the first floor that are vertically oriented and complement the existing wood sidings. And staff has met with the applicant and recommended that similar window size and orientation be used for the second floor. And in response, the applicant has added a third button to create a more vertically appearance for the existing windows. They will be sliders, and instead of two, they will have 3 buttons, as you can see on the second story windows. The staff recommends an approval of the proposed project as presented because the addition is consistent in massing, scale, materials, and details with the style of the existing ranch-style home and appropriate for the neighborhood. I will go over the 3 draft recorded decision and recommendation comments. One is, overall, the 2-story addition is stepped back 20 feet from the existing front facade of the house and is well placed and modest intervention that maintains the overall site plan configuration of the existing site and is consistent with the existing neighborhood. The second-story addition appears to have little impact from the street or surrounding properties. The overall size, height, mass, and scale is appropriate to the site, fits well with the neighborhood, and meets the intent of the design guidelines. And third, the proposed design is comprised of high-quality materials, colors, details, which appear to provide consistency with the ranch style and is consistent with the existing colors and materials of the house. Staff does have a recommendation, and that is to incorporate windows that are more appropriate orientation and overall size, meaning a little bit smaller and vertically oriented. That concludes the staff's presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be available.
Do we have any other questions for staff?
Thank you.
Thank you. Our only speaker on this case is Hamlet Zorobians, who's the architect, who has been here with us for the last 4 hours.
The last 4 hours.
Maybe even longer.
Exactly.
Yeah, 4 hours.
Start the clock, quick.
Exactly.
I will.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Hamlet Zorobians. My address is 3800 La Crescenta Avenue, Suite 209, Glendale. I'm the project architect. The project before you is a pretty simple addition to an existing single-story house, and much needed bedrooms we have added to the second floor. Again, the site characteristics will be kind of unique in this case because the pads that originally were developed, they're about 7 to 8 feet higher than the next pad, if you will. So they're just kind of terracing down. And most of the buildings there, the existing buildings, they have a driveway that goes and access the garage from the side. So it's pretty consistent with what is existing there. As far as making any changes to the first floor, with exception of the fresh paint and some revitalization of the finish and so on and so forth, we're not proposing to make many changes to the first floor. And it's just the second floor addition that goes on top. It just creates some sort of a terrace, if you will, right in the middle of the building. But however, the second floor is, if you can, I'm sure you have already familiarized yourself with it, but it starts 20 feet from the face of the garage back. So we have set back the second floor addition on that side and also on the south side. So it's stepping back definitely. The one comment that we had in meeting with the staff was the proportions of the windows. The windows we had proposed before had basically two lights, and there were sliders. The existing windows are sliders, but the proposed windows were only two lights, and they seem to be a little bit wider in proportion than the other ones. So what we did to make it more consistent, we just made it into three lights without compromising on the size of it. There are obviously a couple of reasons about that, because I need the fire department access, size for the leaf of the window, and also at the same time we need much needed lights to the bedrooms on top. And what also we did, we also again obviously we took into consideration the neighbors, and the neighboring building to the north, it's about, I would say, just about 12 feet away from the existing wall. When we're not going over that, we're just going right on, lining up with that. And their building actually starts where our second floor addition starts. So they're way back as far as the residents are concerned. So we took into that consideration, so we did not come up with major fenestrations or larger windows on that side for privacy issues. We just wanted to make sure that windows are not going to look into each other. So while the first floor windows are completely, out of question, because they're really right dog, and they're kind of in the deep there, so you can't even see it. But the second floor windows are very small windows, and they're basically for ventilation purposes, and there are a couple of bathroom windows there. Our more of the fenestrations that we proposed was more of the front and on the south side. And that's it. Basically, that's my presentation. The total addition will be around 980 square feet. And if you have any questions, I will be available to answer them. Unfortunately, the owner of the property was here. They were here actually, and they had to leave because of the time, so they've left it. But if you have any questions, I can answer. There's a perspective drawing also included in your package.
I have a question.
Yes.
We actually did receive a letter from the neighbor to the house to the north who apparently just purchased their home.
Yes.
And are a little concerned. Can you, having been to the site, I looked at it, that was my one thought was, well, I wonder what the neighbor to the north. You said their house compared to this, I'm looking at that issue of the windows on the second floor. Do you know offhand what rooms are in their house on that side at all, or, I mean...
Yeah, yes, what I could see, because first of all, it's a one-story building, but
Right.
as I said, it's in a higher platform.
Right.
Their windows are mostly not a view window per se, because their living room is in front.
Living room is the...
Yeah,
okay.
so with I think exception of one bedroom window, the rest of the windows are for bathrooms. And it's a very small house. And you can see over there where it actually starts. If you will,
Yeah, I
right-
see that where you were talking about. Your addition is starting right about the edge of their
exactly.
building.
And the right edge of what their start, because
Right.
the actual residence starts there, and the garage is lining up in front
Yes.
of it.
I guess my one question would you consider windows in the bathroom and possibly in that room that were more lights that were just up higher as opposed to a view window? If you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course,
you know.
of course. They're not actually a view window. These are very small windows, and that's for ventilation purposes. I
Yes,
don't have
no,
a view
that's
window.
what I was thinking, is if you're going to do it and you're not, make the window up, so it brings a natural north light, but it's not,
Sure.
so when they're brushing their teeth, then they're not maybe looking in the bedroom window for the house below or something.
Yeah.
That would be my only concern here, I think.
Yeah, and rightly so, rightly so.
Okay.
What we have, the windows actually, see the elevation is different, because their first floor is, let's say, 8-foot elevated. So whenever I put like the second floor level, if you will, is like almost at the plate line, maybe a foot below. So by the time I put a high window there, which we have done, and it's like 4 feet above as far as the sill is concerned, you're already missing it. So they're going to be looking to a more of a solid wall rather than a window. And I don't have a...
Yeah, I was looking back the other way, from the new construction, looking across and down into the existing next neighborhood.
Oh, okay. From that
That's
side.
what I
From
would
that
kind of, give them the granting of a little bit of privacy. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So you said that, are you saying the setbacks are about 6 feet then, right, between? Okay.
6 feet is from our exterior wall
to your property?
to the property. Yeah, it's a little bit more than that, but I would say 6 feet.
Okay.
And then you have another 6 feet for the other.
Okay. And would you say that the grade difference right where the gate is, it's about 6 feet higher for the neighbors?
It gradually, it's actually higher, because there, when I'm showing 6 feet, is quite in front, because as the driveway goes up,
I see.
it goes a little bit higher.
So
So
maybe
it's about
7.
8 feet, I would say.
Okay.
Yeah. 7.5, 8 feet, something like that.
Okay. And it looks like you're preserving the existing chimney and extending it up.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, of course, it's not going to be masonry, but we're going to be, matching the bricks with the existing bricks that we have there.
Okay.
Okay, here we are.
Okay, that's for the questions.
Mr. Insua,
She's
any
going to pull
questions?
up, nope.
It's already up.
Can you pull up a streetscape? Just wondering,
And when you mean streetscape,
standing in front of the house, as opposed to
This
an
home?
oblique.
Oh, we have.
Oh, yeah, but still,
Yeah, we
okay,
have
right,
still.
pass that back down here. Yeah.
I don't remember seeing
Do
it.
we have any more questions for the architect?
Yeah, this is, they don't.
No, I'm okay.
No?
Actually,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. But you don't quite see
Is
it.
there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this case?
Yeah.
If so, you could come up and fill a card afterwards.
There's a 6-foot fence, though, right? See the fence on it?
Well, there's no other speakers, so that closes the public portion of this case. And as noted by Mr. Ellis, we did have a letter from the Kachian family at 4837 Cloudsdale for the record.
Thank you.
Mr. Insua?
Sure. I think that the design's well executed, and I think that this is a good example of how a two-story and a single-story neighborhood can exist, especially when we have a terraced site. And the only thing I would like to say is that, and he's going to do it anyway, I'm sure, to match the rafter tails on the second floor, to match the first-story rafter tails, which you do anyway, to do a good job. And I think it's done extremely well, and I'm ready to support it.
Mr. Yu?
I also concur. I think that the design's well done. I like the materials. A couple of things I was just wondering is, you have the brick veneer and the vertical siding. Is there any way you could turn the corner with that?
Would you like the architect to
No,
come
no.
up for the podium?
I'll just take it. I'm sorry, I was just kind of... I'd like to see it turn the corner on both sides instead of just kind of coming to a corner of the stucco and the materials just kind of ending and the veneer ending there.
You know, on the existing first story?
On the first floor. For example, as it's coming here and turning this corner, it's going to be visible as you're coming into it. And you just have a blank stucco wall coming up into like a... So maybe have it turn the corner here. I don't know where it's going to end.
You mean, I'm sorry, forgive me.
Well, I guess it's here.
Yeah, it's down there.
Right there.
But that's existing, is it not?
It is, but I think what they're calling it out as 6... certain areas... For example, it doesn't continue here, which is kind of strange to me, too. It goes into the porch area.
For me, it's existing, and that's why the detail has an E behind it, so existing E. So I think that's what we got right now, and
I guess they certainly have to get it to do the chimney, right? You know, the facade or the facing.
So then is this existing stucco that they're just going to do new stucco on, or?
we'd have,
Yeah, we can't. It
It
is
calls
one.
out for new stucco, so.
Nope, that's the back. This is some other
We
house.
can't see it, huh?
Right.
Okay, cool. Those are just some of the... Another thing was the second story, it looks like it steps back about a couple of feet on the first portion, and then in the back, it lines up with the line of the house going straight up. I'd like to see that setback, either continuous or further back.
On which side?
Oh, well, on the side there. south of the neighbor here. So I think it's doing a good job of stepping back this way. It's doing a good job of stepping back from the front this way. But I'm a little concerned about crowding that already,
At the closest
the
point.
alleyway that's already
The
there,
closest point.
and then creating it even higher end on the one side. So those are a couple of the points that I had concerns about.
Mr. Ellis?
I think it is a nice project, and I would agree with my fellow board members. I was concerned about the window and that view, especially when that neighbor has just purchased their home and has now, asked us to consider something that the project does take that into account on how the windows on that wall. Possibly what Mr. Yu is suggesting, if that is something that could be considered, would certainly help with that. But I would support the project with the condition that the windows on the north side be situated in a way that they're not, I guess, that the second floor windows are situated in a style so they're not view windows out against the house next door, that they're providing light and ventilation, but not necessarily a view. And you're giving me that look,
You'd like to raise the window sill level above 3.6.
Those would be we would refer to those as clear story windows.
Clear story window? Okay.
If that becomes part of your decision.
Did it in our house when our side against the neighbors, and the windows are up high, they give a lot of north light, but I'm not looking at my neighbor's house all the time, and nor are they looking into us. So,
I concur with my colleagues. I don't really have anything new to add. So, let us proceed and try to make a motion. And
you want to? You haven't had any fun this afternoon. You want to make the motion?
I make a motion to approve the project with the conditions that we stated, and we might want to repeat those real quickly. After us? No.
I guess the only question that I have regarding the comments is the one regarding the brick wainscot. I heard some members of the board say, well, that's an existing condition, it's okay to remain.
It's existing. I'm okay with using it as a suggestion or...
Okay, so we'll make it as a consideration with an acknowledgement that that is existing and outside the original scope of work. We'll also say as a condition, the windows on the north side, second floor, be clear story windows. And now this is a question more than a statement. The north, that the applicant should consider the north side second floor be stepped back somewhat away from the property line. So the question is, would that be a consideration or a condition?
Taking it even further back, just because it creates this little roof that's really, I mean, it's breaking it up from the mass, but I don't think it's enough of a linear breakup on that. And if you're looking at it, I mean, it's not really stepping back on the front portion, but not the rear portion of it.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
well, Mr. Ellis, Mr. Yu, I think you were the one that made those comments, so perhaps you want to clarify to staff what you envision occurring there.
Well, I think that they started the process by stepping it back a couple of feet. I think they should continue that line across or even further back.
Okay, and is the consensus of the board that that is a consideration or a condition?
I would like it to be a condition.
And approximately 18 to 24 inches?
Well, what they have now at a minimum.
Okay,
Fine.
very good. And then those are all the comments that we have noted.
And there's one more about the matching the rafter tails to the first floor.
Right.
It was made by Mr. Insuad. Is that a condition as well or a recommendation?
The rafter tails?
Yeah.
That's a condition.
Condition as well.
He's going to do it anyway, but it's a condition.
All right, do we have a second?
I hear your concern 100%. The problem that I see that may cause a considerable hardship on the construction, a considerable point that I think would create a hardship on the engineering and construction is that if you notice, that line is balanced with the foundation, or the footings and the framing of the floor below. And if he brings it back to here, the framing is different, and then it really starts tweaking down that bedroom to make it really not that usable. It's just a thought.
Right, but the same thing occurs as he's framing across this area too. I mean,
Yeah, but my point is, he's using this foundation and this wall to carry that one. He's using this one here, and that's why he turned it. See, this one is existing, so he's carrying it here, he's carrying it here. And if you have him come here, there'll be big engineering here, and then you can't move that one over, so you then have this really small room in there. And then the stairs also get smaller, and how you work them up. So it has some potential problems, but that's just an observation that
I
I've
think he has
made.
enough room to be able to move this way on the, configuring some of those rooms to be able to make up 2-foot strip on that side of it.
We had a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion made by Mr. Insua, second by Mr. Ellis. This will be a roll call to approve with conditions.
Do we want to go over the staff conditions?
As initially stated. Do you want me to go over it again? I have initially stated.
No,
this.
the draft record of decision, would you like to read it?
Do you want me to go over it again?
I think that's protocol. We've
Yeah,
decided
sure.
to do it every time, so let's stick to it.
Okay, first one. Overall, the two-story addition is stepped back 20 feet from the existing front face of the house and is well-placed and modest intervention that maintains the overall site plan configuration of the existing site and is consistent with the existing neighborhood. Second, the second-story addition appears to have little impact from the street or surrounding properties. The overall size, height, mass, and scale is appropriate to the site, fits well with the neighborhood, and meets the intent of the design guidelines. And third, the proposed design is comprised of high-quality materials, colors, and details which appear to provide consistency with the ranch style and is consistent with the colors and materials of the existing house.
And of course, by installing this new condition, I'm moving the north wall further in on the second floor. I'll modify that second consideration slightly, because it further reduces any kind of a bearing that it might have on the property to its north.
Okay, it will be integrated into that sentence. And we had a motion made by Mr. Insua and a second by
Mr. Yu. Mr. Yu made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's why we're here.
Mr. Ellis second.
Yes.
Okay, this will be a roll call. Mr. Yu,
Yes.
Mr. Insua.
Can I have a comment?
Of course.
Of course. For my clarification, is the north wall issue, are we okay from here to there with that wall?
Yes.
Okay, and that one's sitting down in the ground floor below. We're not okay
He's got
with...
existing columns for terrace.
Yeah, because it's terraced out, isn't
Yes.
it?
It's
Yeah,
right there. So
it's-
he's
So
carrying...
I mean, the footings on those are going to have to change anyway to carry that load.
Yeah, so it's, yes. But, so this is the section that you want to push in. How many inches?
20, what?
2.57.
I think it was discussed between
match.
18...
The match.
To match what now? This one right here?
At a minimum, yes. If he wants to push it back further, that's fine with me too.
If I say no, it's not because I don't think everything else is good. I just think that this would create a bit of a hardship where I don't see that big a problem in that little portion of the house.
Do you have a suggestion?
Our ability to work so well together and approve things that we like and vote upon them and have a unison approach is so good for me, and does this help them with the roof plan? I mean, I just noticed now that the roof ridge there's a break in the roof ridge to start with already. And again, so this gets smaller, so you move it into here, and suddenly these two things aren't matching because this point then shifts over.
Shifts over there.
I don't see it that big a deal, that little section to the adjacent
Match
neighbors.
the front portion, though.
Yeah, so then it matches the front.
No, but this is way the heck back there, and this house, this ranch does have, again, this is 4 miles away. You're not going to see it. It's back here, and I think its rear is more, this would,
It's offset pretty much though already on the rear. I mean, the front and the rear.
Well,
well, no, the rear, see, this matches this. So when you
Mr.
look-
Isu's point is well taken, and that
The interior gets really teeny.
It's going to alter, and it's going to affect the structural components of the home. It's going to move the wall, the lower level wall. We're basically, by moving this in, the symmetry that's created here is going to be altered. The window will need to be altered, probably with a smaller window, and then there's some additional structural work that will have to be done in order to support that modification. And so, gee, what if this bottom portion popped out a little bit?
I don't think they can.
Setback.
It's at the
Yeah, they're at the setback already.
I see. That's right.
Anyway, so, I have to say no, not because I'm not in complete agreement with what we were doing and how we approved, but I think it would just create an engineering hardship, significant cost increase. Aesthetically, the rear would then lose its ability and its balance up and down, where I don't see that much of a big deal in adjacent neighbors. So I would vote no on those issues, not because I don't think that we're all in unison in the design.
All right, so Mr. Ellis voted yes?
I actually seconded it, but now that I'm, I
Asked you, right?
No, you hadn't yet.
Okay, Mr. Ellis? My
Can you go
notes
to
got
Mr.
scribbled here.
Simonian? Let's see what he thinks. I understand where you're coming from, Mr. I don't know. It's a tough call.
I'd like to perhaps ask the architect to come up to give us maybe a suggestion, because he certainly understands the main issue here, and perhaps he could give us a suggestion of what would work in achieving this goal. Mr. Zora?
Am I aware? Sorry again for the record, my name is
Mr. Robbins.
again on the project. With all due respect, I understand these concerns that Mr. you have. But again, I think everything that Mr. Insua said is correct. It's because it's going to impact the structure, and this is a very small house. We don't have so much of, space to make it even smaller, and we have the stairs that is nicely done right now. But if we do that, then I have to cut 18 inches from the stair, and then I got to push it in. So it impacts the first floor as well. So just to move around, if Mr. Yu thinks that this is essential 100%, I'll do it. But I think as Mr. Insua said, it's a hardship to me, and especially it's going to be creating a situation of asymmetry that again, board member, Mr. Chairman said. So I concur. I think if I could have done it in the beginning, I would have done it, and I know the notion. But right there on that side, that's why I've created this overhang to separate the surfaces from each other. So it has that kind of look of a broken, if you will, surface. But it only happens in the rear of the project, where it's actually blocked by the neighbors, and it's not really visible. So I would appreciate it if you can reconsider that, and that's going to make easier as far as the structural and, and many other things that is done.
At the point where it becomes closest to it is right where the sort of the bulk of the neighbor's house is, right, at its highest point.
Well,
Right.
not really, because if I can show, I don't know if you can't hear me there, but I can show you. This is the neighbor's house.
Well, you might be...
So basically, we're adding over here. Neighbor's house finishes here. So we have the addition of the second floor over here. So bulk of that area there, that is...
No, it's actually further in this way, right?
Actually, you know
What we
board
should do,
members,
Mr. Zorabians, if you
Mr.
would
Robbins,
approach...
why don't you approach and speak?
here, and I
Exactly.
believe...
No, please, go ahead.
Your site plan here has the has the
'Cause the
dash
addition is
outline
here.
of the adjacent home. So you can portray to us what you mean over
We
here.
have basically shown portion of it.
Board Member Zarabin, why don't you go ahead and, no, go. Go more than one.
Yeah, that's,
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Yes, Mr. Zarabin.
yeah, so this area here already is set back over here. The second floor goes all the way to here. So you're concerned about this.
Right.
And so what we're saying is that if I push this thing back, it affects the stair, first of all. And the stair, it was very difficult to work out, because when I have the stair here, I have to now push it, and the stair is going to come into this area here. If it's only a matter of 12 inches, I'm okay. I think structurally, which I can actually transfer, the shear transfer. But I mean, it's just a hardship. If it's absolutely necessary, I will do it. But I'm just saying that if it's not, I prefer not to do
On
it.
this neighbor,
It's a garage.
Is that
This is
garage?
a garage. That's a
so
garage.
they're both garage, it's like a large garage.
Yeah, you can
it's
see
a
it on
garage,
the aerial there.
In the area, this is what it is.
Yeah, it's just a garage.
Okay.
Yeah, that one was
I
done.
was just thinking of this terrace, but I guess that's okay. Towards the front.
I don't want to touch that. So, I prefer not to do it because of that, and I think it's just going to create some more hardship for us.
Right.
But if it's absolutely necessary, that's something.
all right. Due to time constraints and what we've already talked about, let's...
Or you can make it, if you include it as a consideration, I'll look at it. If it doesn't really imply structurally, then I may be able to accommodate.
Okay. And so what the architect is saying... Does that mean
I understand what you're saying, and I think that you're right. The arguments that are to push it a couple of feet, it doesn't make any sense that way. I would say maybe reconsider.
Okay.
Reconsider.
I'll take a look at it. I mean,
That was very noble of you
And you would-
to publicly reconsider, and that doesn't happen
I was
every day,
looking out
so...
for the neighbor, but I think it doesn't make sense
Very
to
nice.
do that financially, so I agree.
I mean,
So, Board Member,
So-
you would be amending your motion at this point
Yeah,
in
I
time to
would,
reflect.
condition, instead of a condition, it's now a consideration.
consideration instead of a
Okay.
condition.
all right.
And Board Member
Okay.
Ellis, do you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree to that.
So this will be
Thank you,
brand
Mr.
new
Yu.
roll call, all
Oh,
over.
Start all over again.
Mr. Yu,
Yes.
Mr. Insua,
Yes.
Mr. Ellis,
Yes.
Chairman Simonian,
Yes.
motion passes 4-0. Thank you.
All right, the second item on tonight's agenda, which we announced was to be continued. We will need to have a motion for continuance. So
Motion to continue.
I have a motion made by Board Member Insua. Do I have a second?
Second?
By Board Member Yu, thank you. Perhaps Board Member Ellis, like to be aware, we are just,
I'm sorry.
no, it's quite all right. Board Member Insua has now left the building as well.
I'll explain in a second.
So it's quite all right.
He's got tickets to the Dodgers.
Oh, he has to go. He has to go.
Yeah.
All right. The Dodgers. All right.
I was asking him, because I've seen him a couple times and he does great work, but I can't read the little tiny plans that he gives us, and I was asking if he could put them single a page as opposed to 3 on a page in the future. That was my request.
That is perfectly valid.
I wasn't going to make it publicly, but now that I have, that's
Now
what I
that you have, we'll
requested.
make note of it, so.
You're getting old.
That
Yeah,
said, I
I'm
know.
way old.
There was a motion made by Board Member Insua and a second by Board Member Yu to continue the second item on tonight's agenda for 2 weeks. And this was the one that was,
Wasn't
that
posted
had,
yes.
properly.
was not properly noted.
Yes.
So that's Board Member Ellis, yes, and
Yes.
and Chairperson Simonian?
Yes.
The motion passes to continue for 2 weeks, 4-0. Thank you.
All right.
Our next case is 1-PDR-2007-059-B, 1343 Highland Avenue.
Mr. Chair, because I live within 300 feet of the project, I need to recuse myself.
You good?
Have a good evening.
Good night. Nice having you for the last...
We measured it, are you sure? Always a pleasure. I'll stick at it for a long time, and I'll watch you at home. Good night.
We'll see you
Good
next.
night.
Good night.
Thank you very again, Mr. Ellis, for the AAP.
Thanks, bye-bye.
I'd like to point a few things out on this case before starting. Is originally the case planner on this case, the first time that it came out, and I believe this might be the third or fourth time, for sure it's 3, it might even be the 4th time that it's come in front of the board, was a staff member that's not here currently, and so Mr. Nazarian is filling in for that person, so he might not be as familiar as the original case planner was. That said, also, this case has been in front of us 4 times. I noticed some of the speakers have certainly been around for a while and have come to all the hearings, and it was originally heard under a totally different board. So it was, although Design Review Board 1, all the members except for myself were different. And so now what we need to do is to almost start from scratch, start from fresh, and to try to give some direction as to what we're looking at here. And so with that, Mr. Nazarian.
Thank you, Mr. Samoyan. Next case number is 1 PDR 2007-059-B, located at 1343 Highland Avenue. The proposal is to legalize exterior facade changes to the house and the garage. Additionally, the applicant is also proposing to legalize the window changes and changes to the landscape design and the planting palette. Basically, what the project consists of is majority of the work that was done is exterior. No additional floor area was added. There were also gates and planters added to the front yard, and the project is to legalize those. This project was in front of the board, was in front of the board on August 30th. Actually, it was 2 weeks ago, which was continued, but it was not heard. But it was heard on August 30th of 2007. Board had made some comments back in 2007, and I will go over those and try to see how the applicant has tried to meet those comments or conditions in this case. Comment number 1, remove all parapet walls that project above roof line. Looking at the elevation drawings, applicant has removed or is proposing to remove the parapet walls projecting above the roof line. Second, remove front white gate and the fence. Looking at the plans, it doesn't really indicate if it's been removed or not. I personally have visited the site. They're still there, but having a verbal conversation with the applicant throughout the process, the applicant has indicated that they will be removing those.
What was that, Mr. Nazarian?
The gate, the white gate and the fence, yes. Third, lower all front planter walls to maximum of 18 inches above grade to the top of the brick cap. And this is to meet zoning code, and the applicant has indicated that those will be lowered to maximum of 18 inches in height to meet the zoning code. Fourth was apply hardy board siding on the south elevation from the roof line to the base and wrap siding on the east elevation porch and add jog on the west elevation. Quite honestly, it is hard to imagine what the comment is saying until you look at the elevation drawings, and it looks like the applicant has not really met those comments, except that the applicant has added wood sidings to the gabled roofs as far as the exterior material goes. Fifth one, all windows noted on the plans to have hardy plank and continue the same methodology to the east and west elevations. All other non-affected with sidings to have smooth plaster over brick. The applicant has provided new stucco around the windows to try to meet those comments. Staff recommends a denial of the project based on the following comments. The proposed project design does not appear to be consistent with the design guidelines. The applicant has not submitted a landscape plan which shows the revised landscape planting palette, but I already went over that verbally applicant has mentioned those will be lowered as well. The landscape design and numerous planter walls do not appear to be a prominent feature in the neighborhood. The existing rooftop mechanical equipment viewed from the rear of the house is not permitted at this location per the zoning code regulations. The planter located between the driveway and the new walkway leading to the front entry shall be at least 2 feet wide for 75% of the distance per zoning regulations. The applicant has not provided clear dimensions of those planters. The white fence should be removed, and again, applicant has indicated that they will be removing those. The applicant has not indicated the front setback dimensions of the new gate, which is minimum of 25 feet, and a cross-section views and jam details for the new windows have not been provided, which were apparently throughout the process have been mentioned and asked for. I would assume on the first or second hearing, not the last hearing. And these comments were from the last hearing, and the staff comments were based on the last hearing's outcome. That concludes my presentation, and the applicant is in the audience. If you have any questions, I will try to answer, and the applicant is here to answer too.
Do we have any questions for staff?
Is there any way you could go over some of the history of the project and how it got to this point, or,
I would love to,
but you don't?
but I will let the applicant do that. He will have more knowledge about it.
Mr. Insua, do you have questions for staff?
No, sir.
Our first speaker on this case is Armik Shanazarians, who is the applicant designer.
Good evening. I'm Shanazarian with Connect Group, 639 West Broadway. I'm representing the owners of the property for this project. Let me give you a history of this project. The project started with removal of an existing brick,
Okay.
which I believe you have a picture of it over there. This is how it looked, and the owners, had no familiarity as far as obtaining a building permit, as far as removal of the bricks and replacing it with the existing, with the new bricks. So that's how the project started, and then during the process, they got noticed by the building department or neighborhood services, tried to pull a permit, and then in process of that, they got, as far as the landscaping they were doing, as far as the planter is about 1 inches, but the planter top, it's about 1 inches above the limit. So that's how the process started. I want to also mention to you that that's how we started submitting, and then we had so many comments as far as the process, how to do it. The whole project I want to bring to your attention is also if the client goes and starts painting brick on existing stucco or any surface, they do not require to have to go through a design review process. So this is other comment. But anyway, this is how we got it, and the comments that we had, since Mr. Nazarian is not familiar, he wasn't at the last hearing. They asked us to remove a parapet wall on the front of the building, which we did that, and you see the existing bricks and around the windows. They asked us to come up with some other sort of a stucco finish on that, try to accommodate that one, and then they mentioned about applying a hardy board, which was the original picture, looks like, at the top of the gables. And I don't remember having this thing to wrap around the back porch elevation, because to me it didn't make any sense of wrapping around it starting from one edge of the window all the way in to the end, because it doesn't continue on the other side of the elevation. So that was kind of vague for us to do that. But if the board wishes...
Can you approach the elevation and show us what you mean, just to clarify things?
Of course.
On the original proposal, comments, it was my understanding that they want us to put...
Mr. Shanazarian, would you mind speaking up a little bit, please?
Sure.
Thanks.
They asked us to add sidings from this end and wrap it around this porch. So which would come up to here. This is an opening. It's not a window, but it's opening to come up to this point, or maybe cover this. But my thing was that if we do this, then what would happen to the other side? Should we start from here and wrap it around? So it didn't make any sense. So my original thought was, okay, what if we do? There was a discussion to add these sidings, which some of the board members indicated, over here, and then make this one just a stucco, and if the board wishes, we could do this siding over here. But that's basically the whole idea of this project. Just try to legalize this brick thing. Now, the other comment that I have is that the whole block, which this house exists, majority of them, I have signatures that they have no problem with this project. And they signed petition, and they submitted, I submitted to Mr. Nazarian, and I submitted to you. So originally, when we have the original one, without touching anything, they submitted that one on a prior board meetings, and now with this new project, we went through with the neighborhood, and they submitted all these things, all the signatures and everything. So I'm here to just basically hear your opinion and just find out what, what you wish to do. As far as the planter that Mr. Nazarian indicated, this is a planter box, and it only requires to be 2 feet if you're going to count as a landscaping. It doesn't have to mandatorily be 2 feet based on the zoning code. So I don't think that this is an issue over there as far as landscaping. And basically, as I said, only this section, some small, maybe 3 or 4 feet, is about 19 inches. The rest are 18 inches high planters. But the whole project is basically applying this brick veneer on which had already existed on the building. We just replaced it on a back portion and a front portion, and the sides were all stucco.
Do we have further questions for the applicant, designer?
Thank you.
Our first speaker is Philip Keller.
Good evening, Chairman and board members and staff. My name is Philip Keller. I'm a board member and DRB representative for the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association. I'm here to speak on our concerns with this project. We strongly urge the DRB not to legalize any of these existing exterior facade changes as requested by the applicant for this property located at 1343 Highland, all of which were done illegally and without any permits or prior DRB approval. This project's history of non-compliance with multiple work stop orders by the Glendale City inspectors dating back to June of 2006, coupled with the fact that the illegal work does not meet any of the standards for design compatibility or materials usage as set forth in the city's neighborhood design guidelines, and should be reason alone for the denial of this request. Many of the DRB's previous specific comments regarding design elements on this project that should be changed have been ignored. The large out-of-character white iron fencing gate have not been removed at the front of the property. The addition of siding boards over brick areas on the front facade and the sides have not occurred. Rooftop mechanical equipment in violation of city zoning code regulations still sits on the roof. The Homeowners Association recommends that this project be denied. In light of this project's history, we also strongly urge the DRB to require a new full set of illustrated plans be resubmitted that plainly shows all of the DRB's requested changes. Then and only then should this project be granted the approval to proceed with finishing the necessary adjustments to the design. This applicant has a responsibility and obligation to deliver a house project which is compatible with the predominant neighborhood architectural styles, as is stated in the neighborhood guidelines. Thank you for your time on this important matter.
Thank you. The next speaker is James Azarian.
Well, Mr. Chairman, board members, my name is James Azarian. I'm a neighbor of the applicant right across the street, 1344 Highland. I'm here basically to lend my support for them. These are, as far as I'm concerned, hardworking people. It is not that bad as far as me or all the other neighbors are concerned in the neighborhood immediately living in that particular area or the street. There's nothing wrong that we could see that they did. They may have done some things maybe a bit differently, but for that to punish them so severely, I would say would not be a right thing to do. My suggestion, my recommendation, or my idea would be just to maybe leave them be, let them keep their existing house, because it is not something outrageous. It does not bother the neighbors. It does not bother me. I'm fine with that. Basically, give them a chance to live in their house in peace. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Doris Olga Cuyas.
Hello, my name is Doris Olga Cuyas. I'm the neighbor directly behind this house. My property is at 1338 Norton. I'm familiar with the property. I was born and raised in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, I grew up in the house I live in now. I'm familiar with the applicants. I've known them for over 30 years since they moved to the neighborhood. I think that their intent was to create a home that they thought would be beautiful. Granted, they made a mistake not being aware of the code and pulling the permit, but I think in light of they're sincerely trying to meet your needs, and it doesn't offend me. As a matter of fact, considering the house it used to be, it's a lot better looking than what used to be there. And I'm very familiar with all those sides, because there used to be a gateway through, as a small child that I went to school, going through the backyards, through that yard, and on to Keppel. And so I'm quite aware of the property. I think it is not traditional, maybe in the look for some of the neighbors, and but it is not offensive to me. As a matter of fact, I love the white ironwork that you're asking them to remove. I think it looks very nice against the brick. I would urge you to consider having them to meet what your requirements are, but as far as redesigning it and all, I think it would be a little extreme, because I don't find it offensive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time and sitting through the last hearing as well.
Yeah.
I know it was a long evening. Our last speaker is Frank Torres.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Frank Torres. I live at 1346 Highland, right across from the applicant. And for the record, I want to say I'm a city employee. I work at Building and Safety, City of Glendale. Basically, I'm here to support Mr. Toiser. I live for 2.5 years right across from him. I wake up Saturday, Sunday morning, drink my coffee, and from my porch, and I see this property. And I observed and observed, and I failed to see anything offensive about the house. In fact, just as my doctor prescribed that I take a walk from time to time, I've taken a walk, and I see many houses of brick facade. So I don't know what is the issue with compatibility. Mr. Keller spoke very eloquent and very nice, but he doesn't get up in the morning and see the house that I see. He probably doesn't even live around there or drive around in the same street that where the house is. This is a country of immigrants. As immigrants, we come to this country and we bring a little bit of our country. Mr. Toys is guilty of doing exactly that, bring a little bit of his country. And probably didn't have the knowledge of the law to get a permit, as many people do, in my experience as a city employee. A lot of people don't know they have to get a permit to do these things. All right, and I just want to leave you with something that I was reading here today, a very famous word from Thomas Jefferson in our Declaration of Independence: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's all I have to say, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Torres, for taking the time to come down here.
Thank you.
Mr. Shanazarian, do you wish to have a few closing rebuttal words?
Basically, I just want to hear what are the comments that you have to say, so based on that we can move the project, and just because it's been dragging on so many years, see what we could do with the project and see what we can achieve as far as, because we done testing as far as you remember, we tested the bricks, the way that it was applied. We did core testing and everything. We brought the samples as you indicated previously. So we done through a lot of things. So this was the suggestion that they had, the previous board members had. And now I want to hear what you have to say so we can accomplish.
I just have a quick question. Do you know, I mean, a project like this would have taken a long time to do. Do you know if there was at least one work stoppage? How many were there in total?
There was actually 3 work stoppage. One was for the brick, one was for the garage, and one was for the planter. So the garage, we got a permit already. The planter, we indicated that we're lowering it, but we haven't touched it yet because we don't know what direction we're going to go. So everything is stopped. When the association is saying that, how come we didn't apply those things? We don't know yet. There was a comments from the last, if this is get approved, then we will do it. If it doesn't get approved, then there's no need to be done.
Do you know what the order of the work stoppages were?
I don't have my file with, but as I indicated, one was for the, when they place a stop, majority of this work was done. The break, but as I said, the garage was, which I myself obtained a permit for the garage, which they added a beam inside the garage to support the roof. Okay. And then that was the planter. So there were, as far as I remember, there were 3 of them.
Okay.
A question, because I wanted to be clear. Do you know that when the 3 work stop orders were issued for those various areas, the garage, the planters, and the brick, do you know whether if the people complied with the stop order and stopped doing any more work, or was work
they complied as far as I remember the brick work, right. But the planter they continued.
They continued.
Yes.
And the homeowners are here right now. Do you know? The homeowners are here.
Yeah,
they're here. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any more speakers on this case? That concludes the public portion. As I had indicated before starting, was the fact that this case has come back and forth, and I believe it's the 4th time it's coming in front of Design Review Board 1. And I have been involved with it from day one. Mr. Keller has been involved with it since maybe the second hearing or the first, I don't remember. Mr. Shanazarian and the owners, everyone has come and gone. In fact, Mr. Torres has come out a few times as well. And this is one of those specific situations where something is already built, so it's there. We could assess it, we could look at it, and there is positives and there's negatives to that. The positives are we see exactly what we're going to get. The negatives is there's always suggestions, and with every suggestion it really alternates the entire facade and everything. And so what we've grappled with in the past has been, do you simply try to fix it if there's something wrong with it, in fact, or do you say, well, whatever was done is somewhat compatible with the surrounding area and shouldn't be removed? Because we ordered some tests where they actually cored it to try to determine the stability of the brick, whether it was applied in a structural and sound manner to the existing, and the test came out positive.
Was that done by a professional coring company who wrote up their summary of what they found?
That I don't remember. And so we can certainly open the public hearing again to answer that question. I'm just giving a little bit of a history for us to understand what has gone through. And there were board members such as Sanfrini and others that were suggesting possibly putting some foam molding or some precast around those window surrounds and maybe removing that brick. So there was all those options that were entertained. And then there were options that were entertained, well, should we just put back the original siding above that bay window in the front, and also try to do similar language of architecture around the sides. But at the end of the day, the home is very different than what it was before. And so what might have worked then, might have been indigenous architecture at that point in time, really doesn't work with this because of that rusticated surrounds that really borders the house. And so there's the fence, which I believe is not the major issue here. The fence is easy to fix. We could chop it off and get it totally horizontal or straight as opposed to having the arches. There's the planters, which are easy to fix. You just take out a few rows and all of a sudden you're at 18 inches. Those are minor. What I'd like to accomplish tonight is some clear direction for this applicant, for the homeowners association, for the neighbors, for everybody, because this is the fourth time they're coming back. And what has happened in the past as well is we've had neighbors that come out that surround the home have said they support it, they don't mind it. In their mind, it is compatible, and they don't really see why the city's making a big deal out of it. We've had other members of homeowners associations, we've had other members of the surrounding area have come up and, of course, have portrayed their anger as to why this has occurred, because it was done without a permit. And so, therefore, they don't want this to be a precedent. They don't want this to basically go unpunished. And so I was really hoping to get a full board on this issue, just because they have been here 4 times, to be able to get some finality and some closure on this. And of course, now we understand Mr. Ellis is always going to excuse himself or recuse himself. Mr. Aliano has not been here in the last 2 hearings. So it's us, gentlemen, and I just wanted to take that opportunity to give a little bit of background. Mr. Insua.
I'll start. Well, before I start, I want to say that as a licensed architect in the state of California, the most important things that we are required to do is ensure the life safety of the people who live in California. End of story. When our licensing has absolutely nothing to do with being talented architects or knowing what we're doing or designing good buildings or contributing to the quality of life because of architecture. It's life safety for the people who live in the state of California. And my license can be yanked if I compromise that oath. We're all licensed architects in California. It's an oath that we take in California that we can't escape. Once we accept that oath, then we can talk about all those other things and make a community. My big concern is the life safety issue on this home. It is a single-family residence, and there's relatively low risk concerning bricks falling on people. But when I see parapet walls, do we know that those parapet walls have, at the top roof line, have rebar all the way through to the foundation to ensure that during an earthquake, which we just had a week and a half ago, those parapet walls don't fall on people? And someone telling me that it doesn't satisfy me as a licensed architect by the requirement in my oath that I have to ensure for my license. So until someone shows me a report that shows that it's designed properly, I can't even talk about the design issues on this house. But I can, and I will. So when I look at key areas of this house, the parapet, the footings that are not underneath the brick walls, the foundation system that appears not to be in those exterior veneer walls, and tiebacks that have to be in walls every 48 inches, whatever, I don't know. That's a life safety issue, and I can't even go into the next area of design. So until I see a report that satisfies that issue, I can't go any further. It's not even designed. Prove it to me that those things exist, and then I'll talk about the design.
Mr. Insua, what do you suggest? What sort of reports? Again, because this has been here 4 times. So
contact a company like Twining Laboratories. They will do push tests against the bricks. They will do pointing tests against the mortars. They will X-ray the bricks. They will know what the steel is inside the brick. They'll remove some aspects of the brick, do some destructive testing in key areas, and ensure that we have tiebacks. Contact Twining Laboratories or any company like that. They're in the yellow pages, and they can do the proper testing on this structure.
It's been commented to me that the brick is a brick veneer.
It doesn't
And
matter.
so-
It's going to fall. It has to be tied back into the structure. It has to be on a footing. The parapet wall could fall over. A professional lab has to show me that it's been properly put together, and then I can then talk about the aesthetics. Other than that, I have a big problem with it.
Ms. Wright?
With all due respect, also as an architect, I'm always concerned about life safety. However, this is not the building commission, this is the design review board, and if you chose to approve the project on its design merits, for instance, you could add a condition that would require certain drawings to be submitted to the Building and Safety Department. Ultimately, it is the purview of the Building and Safety Department to determine the life safety of the structure.
I still would be uncomfortable in speaking on this project after that statement that I just made concerning design. I'm uncomfortable with it. And I just can't. So we may have
We don't have
gray
a quorum.
areas, but I can't do it.
We don't have a quorum. If Mr. Insua insists on not speaking on the matter until such tests are provided, and staff's opinion is that this might be outside the jurisdiction of Design Review Board, where this could be a condition that is prescribed, and so therefore Building and Safety would follow up on it, then we really cannot discuss this evening, because we really need 3 people to have a quorum to discuss
Maybe
design.
something that can be done is do the test, take it to Building and Safety, have them agree that that test is proper, and then we can speak upon how we can do
But
modifications.
Ms. Reich is indicating something which is the fundamentals behind that approach, whether it's right, and I haven't had time to even think about this, because this was something that came forward in such a manner which I did not expect. We had asked them to core a sample, which they did, and so we could ask them to give specifics as to the company that did it. Now, with all that said and done, if for whatever reason it is Mr. Insua's right to not discuss a project, in which case you're abstaining from it.
Correct.
And if you abstain from it, I'm getting really nodding our head, and let me just finish my thoughts, and then I hope I'm wrong on this, and we could actually have some finality on it, in which case it leaves Mr. Yu and I to make some decisions, and since Mr. Ellis is always going to recuse himself, and Mr. Insua is going to abstain himself, then we almost need Mr. Aliano here to have this discussion, in which case Mr. Insua would excuse himself from the discussion. We would talk about the general merits of the design, and if there is some sort of a cohesive agreement on the design between Mr. Yu, myself, and Mr. Aliano, then in such a case could we perhaps either approve it as is, or not approve it with conditions, or so forth. So, Ms. Reich, what do you think about this analysis?
Well, it seems that your analysis is correct. So so in that case, you could elect to continue the item until a date that you would have a quorum.
In which case, we would have to make sure the applicant, we would almost have to make sure that Mr. Aliano would be here. I'm not going to be here in this next 2 sessions. The next one I'm back is, I come back on September the 5th.
Yeah, the other thing that comes to me is that there are often cases where one or another board member chooses to vote against the project. I think the difference here is that board member Insua is suggesting he's not interested in engaging in a consideration of the project until that information is provided. And so then, I guess technically, because he's not engaging in any consideration and abstaining from discussion, then you don't have a quorum. But I think it's a little bit of a fuzzy line in a way.
And now that you're thinking out loud, or you're talking out loud, so that's the question for staff, is could I pass the gavel to Mr. Insua, and then I have a discussion with Mr. Yu, because he would have to make a motion, and I would make a motion, and either one of us would have to second the motion.
Well, actually, I mean, in a way, if
But you need a second to even have roll call.
if we're just suggesting that board member Insua is voting to deny the project no matter what, and he's making that statement.
No, I just want to abstain from participating beyond my comments that I just made.
I'm not sure, I'm not sure that...
While we think about this, 2-minute recess while staff wants to give us some advice on how to proceed?
You know, we simply don't have the city attorney here. We would need the city attorney to opine on the situation, but...
Well, can I, that's just a quick statement, that might help to decide this, but I in large part concur with Mr. Insua. I think the things that worry me are, like the parapet, the safety of this, and so to even talk about, keeping a portion or that portion or this portion without knowing sort of the safety issues that go with it, I'd almost want to see them getting together with building and safety and determining that every part of what's there is okay per their requirements. Then we can decide if we're going to keep something or delete something, because we could say that the parapet is fine because design-wise it's great, but then it goes back to building and safety and they do a test and there's no rebar and it's going to come back and they're going to have to destroy it, and it's sort of a vicious circle that we're going to be in. And so if you're going to be out the next couple of meetings, maybe they could take that time and meet with building and safety and verify all the portions of the building as it exists to be up to code.
Yeah.
Then we can decide on what parts should be.
A question is, am I hearing that, Board Member, you are also considering abstaining from consideration of the project for the same reasons that Board Member
I don't think I'm to that point
Insua?
yet, but I'm very concerned about it.
Because if that's the case, if there is a possibility that we would have a quorum for consideration with Board Member Aliano, then the applicant would have the choice of coming back to the 3-member board with Board Member Aliano, or they hear the discussion, they could be advised to consult with Building and Safety, get some kind of confirmation in writing regarding what Building and Safety has found, so that there's a comfort level and there's a full understanding that the licensed architects on the board want to be responsible to their profession. We understand that. So that could then be, if Board Member you're not at this point choosing to abstain, there is the possibility for the applicant to come back before this board without getting that full level of certification by Building and Safety. So if that's what I'm hearing, then the applicant will have a choice.
While Mr. Yu ponders that question, I know the applicant would like to, and the designer would like to have a word. So if you would approach the podium and state your name for the record and
I'm Michel Nazarian with
try to shed some light on this.
Okay. I just want to mention that the project it's a brick veneer. It's about 1/4 inch thick, being applied with epoxy to an existing wood structure. It's not a full-blown 4-inch thick brick with the rebars. Second thing is that the parapet is being removed from there, so it doesn't have to have any support or anything. The parapet and completely if you take a look at the proposal, we have a fascia board at the front, so it's being removed. So there's
all the parapet is being removed.
Exactly. That was one of the conditions of the.
I see.
This is all just very 1/4 inch thick brick veneer being applied.
It's not a 1/4 inch. It's at least 1/2 inch to maybe even 3/4 of an inch.
We did.
You can see an example of it right here. You can see the veneer is at least 3/4 to an inch thick.
On that section.
Well, on that section, so then, is it on this section or the other section? The best thing to do is, I think what we're just saying is, Mr. Hughes, it's not, it's the best, in my opinion, is have a laboratory go out there, do the testing that we described, the tiebacks. If the chimney, how did they do the chimney? It's way up high. There's so many areas that I feel so uncomfortable, my personal license, to say, and it comes back, believe me, I just spent the last year in claims and dispute resolution and expert witnessing and deposed. You'd be surprised how people get sued, even if they were 2 miles away from a project. That's how it happens. Forget the suing. The life safety issue, I think, is so large. You look at this photograph here. How did they support that ledge right there? Is there an iron member over there? Look at the big gap here in this wall right here. The this is now 3/4 of an inch plus this on top of it. What if during an earthquake there's people here? It pops, explodes, it falls. This is not lightweight material. This is heavy material being applied to a home. How about differential settlement? Was the footing designed enough to carry all this? It just goes on and on and on. That it's and then this overhang. How is that connected? You don't know. And it's simple, professionally tested, reviewed, put in front of us, or put in front of me if I'm the only one.
To the satisfaction of building and safety.
Right, and then building and safety said, we're comfortable with it, then I would then be able to talk to you about the design. But, so anyway.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Closing the public portion again. And so, then, what is our direction for this evening? I think we've somewhat dictated it already. So, Mr. Yu, I think Ms. Reich's last question to you is the crucial question of the evening. In light of the parapets being removed, let me see if I could state this situation or
Let me just ask a question. Have they been in contact with building and safety regarding those issues, or are they doing...
Getting a nod from the applicant that they have not.
They have not, okay. So then the decisions that we do make, I mean, they could be totally reversed. Building and safety, if they tell them to remove that chimney or other aspects of it. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and design-wise, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's not an orange house that sort of just stands out there, and I understand. I think the look of it, I mean, it's there. It's just there are just bigger issues that are raised. You know, safety is what if there are children in the yard or something? I mean, they're all ifs, but it could happen, and so I don't think that without the clearing of building, I mean, because that's what they would usually do in a project that gets built. Building and safety would get involved, stop work order. They would have to comply. If it didn't involve us, they would comply by whatever test they needed to run, whatever redoing portions of it if they need to. That's how they would rectify the situation, right?
then in such a case, would we direct the applicant to the building official, Mr. Stewart, to have him work directly with the building official to try to come up with some sort of an appropriate test?
Yeah, you know, the thing too is that we will, of course, in the intervening weeks, check with our city attorney to see if that is an appropriate action, because admittedly, every project that comes before you is reviewed by Building and Safety for its structural calculations. That's not something that's done prior to your review in any case. And in every case, projects are submitted to Building and Safety after your review. That's the normal process. So I just wanted to remind you, and we will be needing to verify with our city attorney that if for what I'm hearing is that this board would like to essentially continue the matter until additional information about the structural soundness of the existing condition is provided. And so you can make that, that would be the appropriate motion in this case, and we will verify with our city attorney that is appropriate to have as a condition of review rather than making it simply a consideration for the applicant.
One thought that pops up, and as anybody or the audience that ever listens to Design Review Board 1, and I think my colleagues could attest to this, I always try to lead and guide the applicants as much as possible to reduce the amount of time that they spend going through the process and to reduce the amount of money they have to spend and frustration they have to endure. since this case has already been in front of us 4 times, there might very well be a case, there might very well be a scenario in this specific case where the applicant works with building and safety, they do tests on this building, they do actually concur and in fact state that the veneer was applied according to codes and that it is safe. And then the applicant comes back and we go through a hearing, and then there's some design issues and there's some significant concerns perhaps about the facade. In which case we've made the applicant go through a few more months of testing and costs and frustration. They've knocked out a portion of the ball to inspect how it was applied, and all of a sudden it comes back and for whatever reason the board has some comments. So I think it's somewhat our duty to try to assist the applicant and at least point them in the right direction, saying, we in fact disagree and think this is absolutely wrong. It should be rescanned, or we think we might be able to approve this project somehow. But before we send them over to do all those tests, I think we should be able to provide that judgment, because the home is there. We've seen it. It's actually there. And when I started out my analysis of this case, I stated it's there. It's one of those rare instances where you kind of see the end result, and it's not renderings, it's not pictures, it's not color imagery, it's actual. And so if these parapets were removed and the rustication of the corners are removed and the window surrounds are removed and some sort of a precast or foam molding is put around the windows and some siding is added as the elevations predict, is that something this board could support or come close to supporting, or have even be in the ballpark of discussing it? If so, then I would absolutely say go ahead. I think it's a good idea for us to have a conversation with the attorney, city attorney. It's a good conversation for the applicant to have with the building official to figure out what sort of test to do. But it might all be a moot point anyways. So with that, Mr. Yu, do you have any thoughts and ideas on this?
I think if we do it with the caveat that we're sort of seeing it as if everything was up to code, what things would we expound upon? I'd be open to having that discussion. I don't think that we can move on any of it, but more of suggestions to them.
Yeah, very quick. It wouldn't even have to be large discussions. It would just be your gut feeling, Mr. Insua, as what it is that we're talking about. It's been here 4 times.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
everyone comes out every time, and
discussion.
it's just a lot of wasted energy. We just need to provide guidance on these kind of things. It's our duty.
I guess in that vein, I would, when we're talking about the removal of the parapet is one issue, it's good. The window surrounds with the, if we go with the built-up stucco, I don't know, I'm not too crazy about that. I don't see how that's gonna
I agree.
help that.
Precast might be a better
it's such a
option.
foreign substance to what's there. If we were looking at this sort of on a drawing, I would probably, I would have probably made a comment about, well, the base, it would have been nice if the base brick was a different color than the face, to distinguish sort of the horizontal band of the base, and then having the face of it. I don't know what you can do to existing brick to sort of differentiate to the other brick. Let's see, what were the other suggestions? Going back to the siding, I mean, there's certain areas, I guess it looks nice, it's fine. I'm okay with that. Not having it in the front, I'm okay with. I think it's a different condition than it is in the back. Do all the windows have that dark brick on it? Yeah.
Well, while Mr. Yu is considering his next comments, I'm going to jump in for a moment. Very often, staff is asked to consider projects that have been built without code, and we do endeavor to be consistent in our review of those projects, to review them as if they have not been built, so as not to provide an incentive or special consideration for someone who has acted without permits. We just wanted to give you that information because staff is very consistent about that.
That makes sense, yeah, okay. It makes sense up here, but then, you know, it's a hardship, because, I mean, I understand and I sympathize with the owner, but I fully understand the ramifications of that they did break the law in doing it this way, even if they didn't know of the law. I mean, I guess ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So I'm torn, and I guess those would be the few comments that I would have if they were to just brought a drawing per se.
So the building base to have a different sort of stone or a different color?
A darker stone maybe, just to differentiate, because it just reads as this large mass of brick.
I agree.
Along with in the paving, it's the same color, similar color, so it just kind of all blends in together into a large mass, so.
When we have the window surrounds of perhaps being precast, the parapets being removed, and the corners, the rusticated corners being removed. I agree. I think if this project ends up going through all the life and safety tests that the building official would request, and as Mr. Insua has pointed out, that it is structurally sound and it's applied per code, those would be some of the items I would also talk about. So it would be something that I think is doable. The idea is to not have them come back on the fifth or sixth time. It just, when I look at the situation, when I see what they have gone through, I don't think they'll ever do this again. I don't think that for the rest of their lives, they or anybody they know will do this just because of what they've been through. So I think they've been punished on this. And the fact that they really loved what they did, because you could just see of all the banding and I mean, everything that they did it for some specific taste, and they got to get rid of some of these parapets and the window surrounds and do something that they don't really want to do. We're imposing something that they really don't want to do. So it's something to consider. So anyways, Mr. Insua, what are your thoughts on it, if you choose to opine on it and join the discussion?
I cannot.
Cannot. Then, Ms. Reich, would you please then check with the city attorney, see if it's appropriate for us to try to continue this into some point in September, where Mr. Aliano will in fact be present, because we always know that Mr. Ellison will not participate in this, and Mr. Insua, for all the stated reasons, will not be part of the discussion as well. And perhaps at that point in time, there will be some will by this board, being Mr. Yu and myself and Mr. Aliano, to try to solve this. And Mr. Aliano has been present, I believe, at 2 or 3 of the 4 hearings. So it would be great to have
a question too, Mr. Insua. If they go through all the testing to kind of say that building safety can say that the work that they've done at all these different parts were up to their code, and they paid all the penalties and whatever ramifications they have to go through, that then would you be open to discussing the...
Absolutely, and it has absolutely nothing to do with penalties or anything. That's a different issue.
Well, yeah, that's their department.
Of course, as long as they provide the proper testing, professionally done by requirement.
I think that's reasonable.
And have that testing board reviewed by building and safety, and they're comfortable with it, and I have no issue with it at all, and absolutely, I can feel good.
So we might be lucky enough to even get 4 board members.
Absolutely, I have no problem
opine on it as well.
I have no problem in reviewing it as long as some certain issues are established and met, which
So then, instead of guessing what-if scenarios, if the city attorney says, no, we have to talk about what do we do then let's just kind of leave it at that, perhaps, and for staff to follow up with the city attorney.
Well, you're essentially continuing the item for more information.
Right.
Do you want to make a motion and take a vote?
We would also need to continue it to a date certain in order
Which
for
we
us-
don't know.
Well, at this point in
We could pick
time...
a date.
We could pick a date, and a date that would be available, this would be a date that board members or Chairperson Simonian would be back, would actually be September the 18th.
Okay. Make a motion to continue the project
To September 18th?
to September
To September
18.
18th.
Do we make specific on
No,
all of
that's
the
it.
other things, or is that just...
Is there a second?
Mr. Insua, are you comfortable seconding that motion?
My comments are made of record.
Sure.
I'll second it.
Okay, this will be a roll call. Mr. Yu?
Yes.
Mr. Insua?
Yes.
Chairman Simonian?
Yes.
Motion passes 3-0. Thank you.
And so, have we already discussed item number 5, which is the approval of the minutes?
Yes, all the minutes have been taken care of.
All right, and is there any staff or board business discussion items?
There are no announcements or discussion items on record.
And we've already gone through oral communications, and there was none.
None.
Could we make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.